My girlfriend gets upset over minor things, but when I asked her to resolve our issues, she dismissed me due to my woke nonsense. I've been dating my girlfriend for about 2 months. She's a wonderful, intelligent woman, and I really care about her. But we've started encountering some issues recently. She often becomes upset over minor things. And I've done my best to avoid escalating conflicts by listening to her and sometimes even taking the blame just to keep the peace. However, I feel it's unfair to always take responsibility without being able to have a balanced discussion for my own emotional well-being. I've made small changes she's requested to avoid situations like the one I'm about to describe, because I feel she overreacts to simple misunderstandings. For example, last Saturday we ended up arguing over a simple miscommunication. She asked me to pick her up early from work. She usually gets off at 6 p.m. to go visit her relatives. I told her I had something scheduled at 4 p.m., but could pick her up afterward. She got upset saying that was too late and insisted she'd go alone and that we could meet there. I clarified that I hadn't realized she wanted to be picked up as soon as possible, but her response was aggressive, which frustrated me because I genuinely hadn't understood her request. When I picked her up later, she got in the car visibly upset. When I asked why, she was mad. She turned it around saying I was the one who was upset. I kept a calm tone, as I've learned to avoid sounding defensive, and told her I didn't appreciate her response. She immediately accused me of being angry even though I was calm, which left me feeling frustrated. Later that day, we started discussing business strategies. For context, she works at a company that advises other businesses, though her specific role isn't in strategy or consulting. I've built my own business over the past 12 years, and I'm very proud of it. It's not the biggest, but it's well organized and profitable, especially in recent years. When we discussed strategies, she started boasting about her knowledge and defending her views. I told her that I thought one of her company's processes would be a waste of time for my business because given our size and limited resources, I focus on tasks that directly impact profitability. She took offense to this, even though her company strategy department is completely separate from her role. She then started personally attacking my business. She knew people who were far more successful and organized than I am. I felt this was extremely low and disrespectful, so I asked her to stop, explaining that I found it hurtful and a boundary I didn't want her to cross. She replied that my comment about her company's strategy being a waste of time was also disrespectful. I tried to explain that from my perspective, it wasn't a criticism of her directly, just a strategic choice based on my business's needs. I even apologized if it came off wrong, hoping she would reciprocate, but she stayed silent. When I asked if she'd acknowledged that her comments were hurtful, she refused. I told her I try very hard to keep the peace, but I can't accept personal attacks on something I value deeply. Additionally, it's painful to feel that every time I don't do what she wants, she resorts to giving me the silent treatment. She stops talking and acts as if nothing matters, which makes me feel awful. It seems immature to hurt someone you care about just to prove a point over something relatively minor. In our relationship, this happens often, but this time the personal attack felt especially low, and I don't think I can let it go at that point. Instead of continuing the argument, I chose to stay silent. She eventually left without saying goodbye, and when I later called to make sure she got home safe, she was still waiting for a ride, so I offered to take her. I dropped her off, but she didn't say goodbye, and she hasn't contacted me since to apologize or acknowledge her part in what happened. While I really care about her, I'm unsure if brushing things under the rug is sustainable. I'm worried that letting this go would allow a pattern of hurtful interactions to develop. What are some strategies to address this kind of conflict constructively without escalating things or compromising my own well-being? Relevant comments. Comment 1. Honestly, this is a lot of red flags for 2 months. I would sit her down, talk through your concerns, and get her to communicate with you and take responsibility for her actions. If she is willing to work on it, great. If not, I would cut your losses and move on. Comment 2. You've been dating 2 months. Having any conflict at this point shouldn't really be happening. Conflict that's making you adjust your behavior to not set her off is a huge red flag. It's okay to just cut your losses and leave before this turns into full-blown harm if it's not there already. Update. Thank you all for your advice and support. On my previous post, I wanted to share an update on what happened and where things stand now. I decided to have a conversation with her to try to resolve our issues. I told her that the most important thing for me was for her to take responsibility for the things that hurt me the most, specifically the gaslighting and silent treatment. which had really affected me emotionally. She responded by saying that I shouldn't bring up this psychological crap from the overly sensitive generation, implying that concepts like gaslighting and silent treatment were just woke inventions. Despite her reaction, I insisted on the importance of how her actions made me feel. Eventually, she agreed that we should both accept responsibility for our actions, which I was willing to do. So we started going through our past conflicts chronologically, and I admitted to any mistakes I had made. I acknowledged these mistakes, assured her that I had learned from them and that they would not happen again. When it came time to discuss last Saturday's argument, I asked her to accept her responsibility as I had done with each of my mistakes. Her response was, "I admit that I haven't spoken in 2 days." I told her that this wasn't truly accepting responsibility. It was just describing her behavior. I needed her to actually acknowledge her role in the issue, as I had done for her. Her response was that my disrespect towards her work. Remember, my comment was simply that implementing a process from a department entirely unrelated to a role wouldn't make sense for a business of my size. Was so serious that she believed the entire fault lay with me and that she wasn't going to accept any responsibility. At that point, it became clear to me that she wasn't willing to take accountability for anything. So I ended the relationship. This decision was incredibly hard because I cared deeply for her. But I now understand that this is for the best. Thank you all for your advice. It helped me see the situation clearly and gave me the courage to address it head on. I know this healing process won't be easy, but I'm confident that ending it was the healthiest choice for me.